Well, Syria vows to defend itself against any foreign military attack. The Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim has promised a surprise defense in the face of any aggression. Press TV's Mohammed Ali tells us more.
Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim addressed a press conference in Damascus at a time the West is threatening Syria with military strike. The minister said such a strike would primarily serve Israeli interests and al-Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front. The minister said his U.S. counterpart asked him during a phone call to allow the United Nations chemical experts team to directly visit eastern Al-Ghouta.
I told the U.S. Foreign Minister that work will be carried out in accordance to Syria's national interest, and then the phone call ended cordially. Now I'm saying to John Kerry that we are not the one blocking the work of the experts, and the guarantees given to you by armed groups are not solid.
The minister reiterated that the Syrian government fully cooperates with the United Nations chemical experts team and is committed to their security in the areas controlled by government forces. He said allegations of Damascus' use of chemical weapons are just pretext to strike Syria.
If countries accusing the Syrian Armed Forces of using chemical weapons have proof of such a use, I dare them to present such evidence in front of their public opinion. I challenge them.
Al-Muallim insisted that the Syrian Armed Forces will continue their operations in eastern Al-Ghouta, pointing out that they aim to block armed groups from invading Damascus and protect the residents of the city from the mortars falling on them. According to the foreign minister, the United Nations experts were not able to enter the second area in Damascus suburbs because of fighting among various armed groups. The UN said the team postponed the visit for security reasons. On Monday, the experts were escorted by Syrian government forces to Al-Mu'addamiyya area when their vehicle was shot near the line separating them with militant-controlled soil. The United Nations and the Syrian government had reached an agreement for allowing the experts to visit 4 new areas in eastern Al-Ghouta near Damascus. With Western countries threatening to overstep the United Nations mandate and launch a military strike against Syria, the country seems to be witnessing decisive times. Nevertheless, the government made it clear that it is capable of confronting any attack, promising countries who would strike with many surprises.
Welcome everyone to GGN. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2013, and I'm Darko. I'm going to cover the war on terror, liberty, sovereignty, basically mostly Syria because that's what's in the news. Alright, here's a video that I tried covering on Monday, but I was having technical issues. But you can go in there and check it out if you type this up. It's a RT's covering it. But Syrian rebels use toxic chemicals against government troops near Damascus. And you can see on one of the boxes here, this is the coverall material, protective, basically mock gear for military, made in USA. So, and it's interesting too because I saw other articles, basically from mainstream media, saying how the UN was being escorted by the rebels, by the terrorists, which is kind of interesting because it was the rebels that would not allow UN inspectors into an area that was held by the rebels in order to inspect the alleged chemical attack by the government. But of course, it was the rebels that were actually carrying out sniper fire against those that were carrying the UN inspectors to the site to try to prevent them from basically getting evidence against them. Syria asked UN to immediately investigate 3 new chemical attacks by rebels, so they carried out 3 more attacks. They're demanding the UN immediately investigate these 3 alleged chemical attacks carried out by the groups on the outskirts of Damascus. They say the attacks took place on the 22nd, 24th, and 25th of August. They said the militants used toxic chemical gas against the Syrian army, where they inhaled nerve gas. That's what I covered on Monday. Dennis Kucinich, striking Syria will make U.S. military Al-Qaeda's air force. So the former congressman said that striking Syria would turn the U.S. into Al-Qaeda's air force. He voted against the Iraq war, and yeah, he was a big staunch, he was one of those lone people that were against the war besides Ron Paul. So you remember Libya with kinetic strikes, and that he went on to warn against attempted minimizing the intervention by terming it a targeted strike. Al-Qaeda stronger than ever after 5 years of Obama's policies from August 4th, 2013. And so this was, a couple weeks before this whole thing even brewed up with Syria and the whole chemical attack fabrication, basically blaming it on the Assad government. And I saw just articles recently saying that if they strike Syria, that Al-Qaeda will grow stronger. Well, they're arming Al-Qaeda. They're about to basically be their air force for them. They're funding them, they're training them, they're arming them with these chemical weapons, including the United Kingdom that is giving them this mock gear along with the United States and gas mask, probably with the chemical weapons too. It's like Libya. There's going to be agencies such as whatever the MI5 or MI6? I think it's MI6 and SAS, along with CIA and Mossad, covertly on the ground with, of course, private contractors as well. It says here, U.S. and Al-Qaeda-linked group behind Benghazi attack trains jihadists for Syrian rebel groups. So Ansar al-Sharia running training camps in Benghazi. This is from August 28th, 2013. U.S. intelligence agencies earlier this month uncovered new evidence that Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists in Benghazi were training foreign jihadists to fight with Syria's Islamist rebels. Again, besides separating the oil resources from the people, and getting out of the hands of jihadists, their mercenary force, and back into the hands of Western corporations and that Western interest, they also use it as a smuggling haven for smuggling Stinger missiles, among other things, and jihadists and training them in arms, basically, is what Libya has become. So it's a failed state, but it's actually a successful state for what they want. So bombing Syria will only strengthen the hardliners, the Wall Street Journal notes. So it says the U.S. attack on Syria would likely dash expectations of progress in nuclear negotiations with Iran. And it'll undermine the Iranian president's call for relations with the West. An attack on Damascus would likely give Iranian hardliners who oppose a nuclear compromise the upper hand. So they're saying that an attack would actually push Iran to speed up its development of nuclear weapons. So you can kind of see how people are playing the cards, or playing the chessboard, as Brzezinski put it. CIA files show America helped Saddam Hussein as he gassed Iran from August 26. So as they prepare for war with Syria over alleged chemical weapons attack, a report by Foreign Policy magazine details CIA files that prove that the United States knew Saddam Hussein was launching some of the worst chemical attacks in history and provided him assistance anyway. So U.S. intelligence officials conveyed the location of the Iranian troops to Iraq, fully aware that Hussein's military would attack with chemical weapons, including sarin gas and lethal nerve agent. So it's supposed to have been confirmed. U.S. claims against Syria. There is no evidence. The Wall Street Journal has confirmed what many suspected, that the West's so-called evidence of the latest alleged chemical attacks in Syria, pinned on the Syrian government, are fabrication spun up from the West's own dubious intelligence agencies that revealed that the U.S. is citing claims from Israel's Mossad agency fed to the CIA, a repeat of the fabrications that led up to the Iraq War, the Libyan War, and which has now been 3 years to justify continued support of extremists operating within and along Syria's borders. UN official and Syrian Kurdish leader say that Assad did not use chemical weapons. So she's the UN official Carla De Ponte. She's from Switzerland, and she was a former prosecutor of United Nations International Criminal Law Tribunals. From an excerpt from Monday, May 6, she says Syrian rebels used sarin nerve gas, not Assad's regime. Testimony from victims strongly suggests it was the rebels, not the Syrian government, that used the sarin nerve gas during a recent incident. She said that their panel had not seen any evidence of the Syrian government forces using chemical weapons, and to the Kurdish leader, says here that Assad would not be so stupid as to use chemical weapons close to Damascus. So another leader of the Kurdish Democratic Union Party suggested last Wednesday's attack, which the opposition says was carried out by government forces and killed hundreds of people, was aimed at framing Assad and provoking an international reaction. Basically, they said that they wouldn't use them around Damascus, 5 kilometers from the UN committee which is investigating the chemical weapons attack. In rush to strike Syria, U.S. tried to derail UN probe. This is from today. After initially insisting that Syria gave the United Nations investigators access to the site of alleged nerve gas attack, the administration of President Obama reversed its position on Sunday and tried unsuccessfully to get the UN to call off its investigation. So not getting what they want, I guess. The sudden reversal and overt hostility towards the UN investigation coincides with the indications that the Obama regime is planning a major military strike against Syria in the coming days. And they see that the UN is hindering its plans for the attack. UN Council clears path for action in Syria. This has come from McClatchy, so they're definitely going to promote this stuff. You can tell when it says this. The question of Western military action against the Syrian regime moved from if to when overnight this morning. UN Special Envoy to Syria Lakhdar Brahimi in Geneva Wednesday told reporters it does seem like some kind of substance was used. Russian Deputy Prime Minister was quoted saying the West behaves towards the Islamic world like a monkey with a grenade. Next up, ex-Powell aide says U.S. can attack without UN mandate, so even if they do say that they did it or they didn't do it, they're going to do it anyways. She would be little disturbed when the Obama regime is recruiting a veteran George W. Bush a hand to support its war plans. Also covered this just on Monday. President Clinton ignored the UN Security Council and relied on NATO's approval, basically his own, to bomb the Serbs. Lindsey Graham, a nice little Zionist, says U.S. should ignore UN mandate in Libya. So remember with Libya from April of 2011. So they ignored that. So they ignored it for Libya as well back in 2011. Obama ignores Congress and approval for Syria attack. There's a letter, you can check it out, there's a link. 56 bipartisan House members demand President follow Constitution. So the White House has failed to respond to a letter signed by the Congress asking Obama to get congressional approval for an attack on Syria. As we strongly urge you to consult and receive authorization from Congress before ordering the use of military force in Syria. Your responsibility to do so is prescribed in the U.S. Constitution, the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Basically call them out on Libya. But they said here that Congress was not required because the military was engaged in hostilities because it was short. They got to keep it short, so it's legal. And now Israeli intelligence intercepted Syrian regime talk about chemical attack. About the Wall Street Journal and added in that Tony Cartolucci story from Land Destroyer, Israel is the one providing the evidence. The bulk of evidence providing the Assad regime's deployment of chemical weapons, which would provide legal grounds essential to justify any Western military action, has been provided by the Zionist Israeli military intelligence, as a German magazine Focus. Israelis are lining up for gas masks over Syria's war fears. There are thousands of them lining up for gas masks or ordering them by phone, spurred by fears that any military response would basically ensnare their own country in the war. Ensnare. I like how they always say ensnare because they're the ones behind the whole damn thing. Zionist entity expresses concerns over Syria's response to military strikes. So the Israeli government ordered a limited call-up of reserve units and raised the military alert level. They say the Israelis are not prepared to cope with chemical strikes, and 40% of the Israelis are not provided with gas masks, says an Israeli newspaper. Their sources warn that the Syrian regime may use heavy missiles to target Tel Aviv as well as target Israeli constructions, infrastructure, I guess. Israel calls up reserves as Syria bubbles, but its lobbyists are noticeably quiet. So it's the same thing in UK. It said here that they want Israel to stay out of Syria's war. They just want to engineer it, but was preparing for any scenario in case there's repercussions for their actions. And of course, like I said, they want other countries to do their work for them. It even says it right here. What's up with the Zionist caution? They don't want this to be seen as a Jewish or Israel war. Israel military stages maneuver at northern airport, says a report. But it says here the airport director said there was no connection between the drill and the reports of a possible attack on Syria. Another two-day exercise is also set to take place in the occupied Golan Heights later this week, as Russia joins U.S., Canada in anti-terror aerial exercise. So this should be kind of interesting to show you. But when I talk about, is there any sovereign governments left? Are they all working together behind the scenes, just playing out this charade for us. They said here it began on Monday's codename Vigilant Eagle 2013, including NORAD and the Russian Air Force. For this on Monday, U.S. full-scale war on Syria justifies attack on Israel. They said Israel will also be set on fire, and then basically they're going to keep attacking them. They said not just by Damascus and its allies' retaliation, but by extremist groups who find. Then you have Hezbollah saying that they will attack Israel if strike or U.S. strike aims to topple Assad. Iran's foreign minister said the Syrian crisis is a trap set by Zionist pressure groups for the U.S., so they're basically warning them not to fall in the trap, that if the crisis flares up, it cannot be confined to one region. In other words, you're going to have to deal with them. Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, and Israel's armed forces are now on high alert. U.S. troops mobilized along Jordan-Syrian border. They're backed by tanks and fighter jets, so it appears to be moving towards military action. Marine units positioned near Syria, coming from the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Now there's four U.S. destroyers on. Western warplanes have been arriving in Cyprus. Top U.S. official tells NBC we're past the point of no return against airstrikes are inevitable. They say airstrikes on Syria possible as early as Thursday. This is GGN. Thank you.